selecting my class and coming to hear a story. So I'm with Turner Fleischer Architects, and we're going to talk about our journey towards achieving a digital twin, starting from our Revit design. Of course, right when I'm going to get started. Bear with me a second. Let's get that started again. It was all tested and working perfectly. All right, so my name is Brent Mowdy. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Turner Fleischer. I've been in our studio for 3 years. And I have a couple of decades of experience previously at Arcadis, IBI, who's now Arcadis, and Sageville Mills, who's now Jacobs. So I've been in all gambit of water, wastewater, energy projects, international programs, London Olympics, Panama Canal. All over the world has been fun, and now with Turner Fleischer Architects, we're making magic with data. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years, is just really trying to find various ways to make my data dance. We're one studio of about 250 professionals. We have a satellite office in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and we're based in Toronto, Ontario. This is the gambit of the work we do: high-rise residential, low-rise, commercial, industrial, warehousing, interior design, wayfinding, which we call experiential graphic design. It's signage within most of our projects. Mixed use, senior living, you name it. It's all about doing the design. It's about creating information and doing something with that information. So, Revit to digital twin. You've got the BIM process. BIM is not a digital twin. So Revit is not BIM, BIM is not digital twin. The fundamental premise of everything, I've been touting Revit is not BIM for decades now. I think everybody knows that. Actually, it was cool on the main stage, you heard them say the BIM process, and it was said so explicitly clear. I thought that's awesome. It wasn't like that a decade ago. But let's rewind. What am I doing? Why am I talking to you about a digital twin today? Well, 4 years ago, my CEO and one of our principals were here talking about our studio transformation. The title was A Space for Projects. And what they were looking to do is how we could recreate the space we work to better enhance all of these 10 qualities. So their whole presentation was about how to take what was and turn it into something. So what I'm showing here is what it became. So focusing on learning, creating an environment we can learn, interact with each other for full continuing education requirements, and just expand how we work, how wise we work. Spaces to actually do our work in, our boardrooms, the old versus the new. So this was the starting point. So when you think about a digital twin, it's not about what does my model look like. It's about what am I going to do with the space when I get to it. So the foundation of this project was what are we trying to create? What's that end use? So all the times we say model, thinking of the end use in mind. What's a good design model when we think of how it's going to be constructed and you model as it's going to be constructed? What's a good digital twin? When you start very early thinking about what you're going to do at the end of the game. What you're trying to achieve, different types of client experiences, different types of environments, getting rid of clutter, clean space, openness, a space for us to gather, that old lunchroom versus the new lunchroom. It was just completely molded, shaped, and designed based on how we wanted to use the space. The use of technology, a space for technology. It's great having technology, but when you have a dangling headset somewhere because you have nowhere to actually put it, well, make a space to put it, right? Wellness, the introduction of light, the introduction of trees, the betterment of air quality. That was a priority for our design. Reflection space, that sign kills me. This was before I was at Turner Fleischer. Like that's actually what it was. Now there's actually a reflection room. So a space divided, so there's wellness of physical health, there's wellness of prayer and mental health. We need to create. We have a model studio. What will we do in there? Build stuff. Stuff from our models, stuff from our minds. How will we get it there? And a space for growth. We started to outgrow our new space already 4 years later, but the idea was to facilitate growth. So we wanted to become a dispersed studio into more of a one studio space. So we're all working, we're all collaborative. So that ended with this. This is our model. I said I'm going to start showing just simple 2D because we still got to do that, right? But now we fast forward 4 years, and what do I have? I have a model, it was built. Now I have assets. Now I have a facility manager that has to go around this space and do stuff. Well, what does he have to do? What's the point, right? So what do we have? We have a generator. Great, it needs maintenance, it needs something. We have bike storage. We have a green wall. You know what it takes to keep that wall green? There's a lot of stuff there, right? We've got vending machines. I've got 3D printers, laser cutters. They all need maintenance, they all need equipment, they all need supplies. Normal printers that I'd love to get rid of and use as space for needles, but we still have to print to paper. Fine, it needs ventilation, there's a lot of stuff to make those run. I have swag. Now this is cool, think about that. Do you ever model the water bottle that you're going to give out to a client? No. But somewhere in your model is a space for this. But now I'm operating a building. So what's my space? And what's all the stuff in there? How do I count for my inventory? What about all this stuff, all my stationery? Pens, pencils, this, that. We need that stuff. I need to know where it is. I need to know how much of it I have. And I need to be able to manage it. And I want that all to be done through my digital twin. This is the most important part of the studio. I need that all day long. And here at this conference, I miss that. I know Starbucks is there, but at $6 American a shot, it's kind of scary. So we have that. That has supplies. We have fire hydrants, safety, right? So there's a whole facility management routine around those assets, wherever those assets are scattered around. We have a fitness center. Great, well guess what? That stuff has to operate. That stuff has to be maintained. What if I go on that treadmill and want to figure out how to use it? What do the buttons do? And I'm there getting ready to run. Where do I go? Go find a manual somewhere, a PDF. Is it on the server? Is it at the guy's desk? I don't know where it is. We have screens for display. Guess what happens when they go down? ACTO. I can't run my presentation. What am I going to do? Got to figure out how to fix it, right? Water dispensers. Really convenient. Scatter all over this. What happens when the water doesn't come out? It was a great design concept. Nice in the wall. Looks perfect. Now it doesn't work. Fix it, right? We have trees. They got to live. We've got touch screens. They've got to work. You've got to be able to touch them and save the content and make it go somewhere. I've got skylights and windows, and they actually are supposed to tint with sunlight, which is great. But what happens when that doesn't happen properly? We have IoT sensors, 35 of them scattered across the studio. And I've got stand, sit desks everywhere. All of these assets, great, have to be managed, have to be working, have to need access to all that data and all that information. So what do I do with all of this? Boil it down to, I've got spaces, I've got wellness, and then I have the assets themselves. And if I can tackle those three facets, I can start to build my digital twin. And that's what we did. So when we started looking at the digital twin, I said, great, I have all this stuff, and don't forget that BIM, right? That process that went from conceptual design through design into construction, and I've got the culminating as-built model. That's a big clump of data right there. And that's just a tiny little speck. So I have all of this stuff. So we needed a digital twin platform. And of course, when asked, isn't that Revit? No, it's not Revit, right? But you know that question it's asked. So we explored a bunch of things. From small, Flair 3D is a Canadian outfit. Where I used to work, we built a platform. So when I came to Turner Fleischer, we actually explored that platform as well. Archibus, Archidata, Ecodomus, there's others, but these are the ones we explored for functionality. We wanted to look, we wanted to understand, we wanted to see what could be done. But, because I wanted to present an AU, of course we ended up with this somewhere. We ended up with Autodesk Tandem. So, if we didn't end up with Autodesk Tandem, I don't think I'd be standing on the stage, but that's okay. So with Autodesk Tandem, why? Right? What did Tandem give for me? Well, the first thing was, it wrapped around my model. So it gave me a familiar interface and let me do things to the model that I would just normally do if I was in Revit, in Navisworks, in ACC. Awesome. So that made it pretty easy to get into the model itself. It
connected to ACC. That made it even easier. Now I can say, well, hold on, I've got my model in the cloud, I'm just going to wrap the digital twin platform around it. And it'll work. I like that. And then we can have secured access, honoring my M365 logins. So I knew who should access what and when, and I can control it. The permissions of ACC perpetuated to the permissions of Tandem, and it actually works really, really well. I can link to stuff. And this was critical. The biggest misconception of BIM was you make a big bucket of model and you jam everything you can in it. Well, that's not what I want. I want it to be able to link to repositories from a single visual source, and this facilitates that. I want views and filters, slice and dice, and make it appear how I want it to appear, or how my stakeholders want it to appear. That's important too. And then lastly, the biggest importance, connection to IoT. I've got all those sensors reading data. I want to do something with that data. I want that data to have meaning, and I want that data to be interactive with the assets which they affect. So this is what I got out of Tandem. Now, it wasn't like that in Jan 2021. So we were part of the technology community. We got early access to Tandem, and I remember when we were exploring the rest, we said, well, hey, we need IoT, we need to play with spaces. As Tandem started to evolve, it became, oh yeah, this thing's good. And it's going to keep getting better and better and better. So we're in. So, what have I done with spaces? So, the biggest asset in a studio are our people. And our people, we manage them through, oftentimes through seating, how we're interacting, how we're collaboratively connected to each other. So when we model the desks themselves, I said, okay, I have geometric representation of how these things look. I need to understand from my model certain aspects. So we built in parameters that would allow us to identify a couple of things. Type of desk, simple, network switch. I'd say, why? Well, would you ever model the port number or the connectivity? It's a piece of metadata. And I wanted to be able to harness that metadata and connect it. I wanted to understand its data port, its switch number, the name of the computer there. So what are all the little assets, the finer assets that are attached to those desks that we may or may not model? It's all metadata. It's all still desk. The department of the person, the manager of the person, who the person is. Some fundamental pieces. So now I have the ability to use the model to play with where my staff, studio members are seated. Revit lets me do that very easily. I can colorize views, etc. Now I want to pull it out and now do something with it from an operational perspective. So if I'm editing the data, I have Revit. If I'm experimenting with the data, viewing it, analyzing it, this is our Tandem view. So one example here, I can now start to understand, let me analyze. Let's see everybody based on department. So we colorize by department. We want to see where do I have clumps of color together. Am I encouraging collaboration? This is at a glance. This would be a quick analysis by a facility manager with the CEO, CTO, maybe some partners in the room. Does the breadth of the interaction of color look right? Are we enabling collaboration as we're envisioning it? I have access to metadata, and part of that data that each desk carries allows me to do different things with the views. So instead of just saying, well, show me desk, this would be desk. But what if I show myself network switch numbers? So IT wants balanced network switches. So Tandem lets me tap into that metadata, and this ability to cluster the filter is really fun. And I can now, at a glance, do an analysis and understand, do I have balance? Is one heavier than the other? Well, all that's just based on metadata. I'm not doing anything with that. I'm just identifying which desk has which network switch, and it allows me to interact and have a little bit of fun with that, and have an analysis and some takeaway for a dialogue. Another view here by manager, and I can continue to add, and I continue to evolve. the beauty with Tandem is there's no finite limitation to how I want to slice and dice my data. So something as simple as desks has allowed me to sweep through and manipulate that BIM in multiple different ways through the platform of Tandem. So let's shift to wellness. Now wellness is it's important. It's in a lot of sustainability, LEED, indoor air quality. There's a lot of benefits to trying to find a solution for this. And with wellness, we said we can't conquer the world, not yet. But we'll start with indoor air quality. And we said, what are we going to do? Let's buy sensors. So if anybody's bought IoT sensors, they're like 2 or 3 little dangling chipboards connected by wires. They look horrible. And if I started hanging those across the studio, I think I'd have problems. So let's have a design competition. We're designers. We had about 6 teams that wanted to play, and all these teams submitted examples of an IoT holder. Cool. The problem? They were all cool. Each one had a little bit of good. So we said, okay, let's try to pull all the designs together, came up with a prototype, ended up with the final, and now I had an ability to place these things scattered across. There's about 35 of them scattered across our studio, capturing data. So what data? Well, you buy an IoT sensor, it comes with tons of stuff. So they said we're going to focus. Temperature is the biggest one. And every time I show the temperature map, oh, it's always hot in my area. We're working on it. That's the point. We're working on it. That's why we do it. So temperature, humidity, pressure, CO2, particulate matter, which was really, really fun, and I'll tell you why in a second. And formaldehyde, so off-gassing. We have a design studio space where we have a lot of samples, and all those samples come from the outside. There's potential off-gassing. We want to make sure that it's in controllable levels, so being able to analyze that is really cool. And lux, light quality, light intensity, sorry. So, great, sounds good. What am I going to do with all this? Step 1, this. Love it, eh? I'm a Power BI fanatic, and this is my moment to tout Power BI and its awesomeness. So all of our sensors broadcast to an MQTT broker on Linux server. The MQTT listener takes all of the data, feeds it to a SQL database, which I then feed into Power BI. And then once in Power BI, I can do simple things like filter, so I can select one of the items that we're analyzing, or I can filter by each specific sensor. So labeled by room, I can see what's happening in each space. When I see temperature fluctuations, humidity fluctuations, the facility manager and I can analyze. Is there a problem? Is there something we have to analyze? Something to change? Our meeting room number 3 is perpetually hot. We're on it. We've got to make it work. The gym, I like it to be colder. We can set it. Particulate matter. This was particularly interesting when I go back to this next view here and you see July. That is the forest fires that were coming from the north, going into the northeast. I remember not being able to breathe when I opened the door. It was that bad. And then I said, well, let's check our sensors. It was that bad. And I said, how sad but amazing that the technology is working and wholly reflected what was actually happening on the outside. So I have all this data, and my data goes back to 2019 when we first started putting sensors in. Back then we had 1, now we have 35. Great. So what's the deal with the digital twin? Well, thanks to the digital twin, I have the ability now to live stream those sensors into Autodesk Tandem. This was a game changer of when we onboarded Tandem. So streams are connected. They allow us to use heat maps. So they built in heat maps, I built the range, and it allows me to analyze the temperature, the pressure, any one of those items that we're using, we're analyzing from the sensors. I can see a visual map of it. So I swear every morning when I open up my computer, I pull this up, pull up the tent map, and I just either smile or I go, oh my goodness, something's wrong. What do we do? And when the IoT sensors disconnect, oh, it breaks my heart, because then there's something to do. But it doesn't happen often. So the streams get live connected.
live sync. So when you hover over a stream, it'll show you the most recent reading. So when the reading says a day ago, like in this video, that's a warning saying, hey, where's the last day's readings? Usually the stream says about seconds ago or minutes ago, and I'm really, really happy. I can pull up these charts, and within Tandem, the free version, so the free version is the limit of assets you can have in a limit of facilities, and you also get limited to 14 days of history. So I can still see the previous 14 days of any sensor that I select interactively in Autodesk Tandem. So that's really cool. I can focus in on temperature, humidity, or whatever I want to focus on, adjust my range, adjust my scale, and analyze the data live. If I want to see what happens pre-14 days, I jump over to Power BI. I lose the cool connection to the model, but I still have 3 years plus worth of data that I can analyze. And the inclusion of these streams, again, I'll stress, made Autodesk Tandem an awesome product to interact with and bring into the fold. So this was actually a really, really cool step up for me into the world of digital twin. And the usage of it, as I said, all I gotta do is pull this up, sit in front of the facility manager, and there's that red, right there. There's our red hot room. Like, what are we doing with it? How do we fix it, right? And then, what have we engaged? What are we trying? Then let's pull this up and reanalyze. It's being used live, it's being used often. When I love running, I'm in this gym when we're minus 20 outside, Celsius. When we're minus 20, and I want the humidity lower, I want the temperature lower. So we have an ability to really analyze and understand the space using the technology of the digital twin. Lastly, this is a big one. It's a big one. Assets. So all that stuff, what do I do with it, right? So I needed a platform for my inventory, I needed a platform for my manuals, and I needed a platform for my model. So this trio has come together. Now, I'm sure everybody's heard of Tandem, I've heard of SharePoint. Anybody heard of Sortly? Anybody? No? Sortly is really cool. So it's our inventory system. So we use that to track the intangibles that you would never model. This is my stationery. This is my swag, whatever it is. So Sortly, both Sortly and SharePoint, before I get into what Sortly is, we had to decide on something. I didn't want to go to the model every single time there's a new manual, a new document, an additional whatever. I wanted to have my digital twin hyperlink to repositories that don't change. So for the example here is all of these spaces, or all of those down the left, are fixed locations. So I will perpetually hyperlink to the bike box. So when I go to the bike storage, and I want to see the inventory of the fobs. So how many fobs you can go up to the bike storage, use the fob, and it unlocks and opens. Well, there's only, 10 of them, whatever there is. Are they in? Are they out? Are they broken? Are they new? Are they old? Tell me something about them. Where are they, right? This is how many I have in the inventory. I don't want this to change, so we're linking to it's like folder linkages. Folder stays constant. From my model, I'll always be able to hit. Using the same bike storage as an example, okay, the fob is cool, but how does it work? How does the lock turn? What do I do? So on SharePoint, we set up a repository for our manuals. So here's the bike storage, that's its folder, that'll be linked to from the digital twin. The facility manager can add, change, remove, replace, whatever he needs to in that folder. I beg people, don't put dates in the file name, but sometimes there's a date in the file name, and I wouldn't want that to break my hyperlinks to the model, so there's no date in my folder, and the folder remains constant. But once I'm in there, I can link there, I can see the stuff, great. So this is what I want to be able to get to easily. But I don't want to be able to have to say to somebody, now you got to go to SharePoint, you got to find that SharePoint site. I think it's called facility management, is it called studio, is it called whatever, what document library is it in, what folder is it in, which, by that time you do that, you say, Brendan, leave me alone, your technology is broken, and I understand. So, we have this. Now, in Tandem, I set up a view, so I'm able to identify which items carry a hyperlink. So I set up a view
looking for inventory-based hyperlinks. Inventory is a instance parameter. So I have to fill that out, link from that. This is going into the swag. And I'm able to see, the swag, and I'm able to see how much I have. So from navigating through the model, go to the swag cabinet, hit the swag inventory, boom, I'm done. Straight back to the model when I'm finished analyzing. Slide over, I want to hit the stationary cabinet, so maybe I'm planning a client meeting, how much stuff do we have? Hit the stationary, there's my element link, going to the TF inventory parameter we built. Now I'm in sortly, and I can see how much swag we have. And that's the idea, to connect me to the information that I won't have in my model, trying to use the pieces of Tandem, using Tandem as my interface to this data. Then I have a view looking at elements that have a manual. And I've just colorized views, that's the whole point. So I'm able to filter by those that contain an entry. This is our green wall. So what's all the stuff? So the green wall type parameter, if I had 2 green walls, it would still be the same stuff, that's why it's type. And I can go in there, and you can see there's a whole bunch of things. There's pumps in there, there's how to maintain the leaves, what trees do we have, what color are they going to become, how much water do they need, how are they going to smell, how long should the fan be running. All of this information is all associated to that one little modeled element that's a rectangle called green. And I'm able to access this information directly, again, because Tandem honors M365 security, SharePoint, M365 security, it's all in the same ecosystem, so my access points are equivalent. I'm in our model studio. This is our laser cut. Same concept. How does the thing work? 2 clicks, I'm at the manual. That's how it's gotta be. I need ease. I need the facility manager to understand what are the venting requirements. 2 clicks, see it. I need to understand what are the safety requirements. I'm gonna walk in there and turn this thing on. 2 clicks, I see it. And that's what's important, to not dwell and not get discouraged and say, well, don't worry about it, I'll just walk in the room and just turn it on. There I hit inventory for my 3D printer and it was empty. That could be a concern. Or it could be, why didn't somebody update the inventory? I'm gonna go fix that. Jump over to the gym. I jump on the treadmill. How does it work? Or it's beeping. Or it's doing weird things. 2 clicks, pull up the menu. Read how it works. I've struggled so many times in my career, even as a homeowner. Where's my furnace manual, my hot water tank? I know I had it once upon a time, don't know where they are. Another example here, I'm going to jump to the inventory. And what I wanted to just go back to the gym there. So we've got a storage shelf that has a whole bunch of things on it that I would never model. Weights, barbells, etc. The asset is the storage shelf. So how's the shelf? Is it IKEA? Is it whatever? How's it assembled? What's its manual? Now what's all the stuff on the shelf? So that was all in my sortly inventory. So they all kind of work together in tandem with Tandem and gives us something that's fully functional. Jump onto the roof. Well, I don't want to go on the roof, but I want to know what's up there. So what are those air handling units? 2 clicks, boom, get all my data about it. All populated, all coordinated with the facility manager, with our mechanical suppliers, and everything works out okay. So, lastly, we have windows that change color. Halio windows. Halio windows. So again, a couple clicks. How do they work? What's the user interface? What do I press? How do I interact? How do I change the settings, make them more sensitive, less sensitive? How do we balance that across everybody within the studio? How do we use the mobile app, which I only recently discovered there is a mobile app. So all of that's there. So Tandem gave us that. Now, great, it's still a model. What else can we do with it, right? Well, sorry. Drive it like a game. So that's all cool and everything, but now, just like with all of our models, I have this experience, I can walk around. This is a filtered view, again, showing me everything that has a manual. And this is now same ability, right? Highlighted colored items are stuff with the links to the manuals. And this interaction, this interaction lets us do that. And I can just now drive around as I would any game. I can put this on our new goggles, the Quest, and walk around. I can experience it, immerse myself in it, and be connected to whichever view I decide there should be. My assets, my inventory, maybe I make a view with both. Maybe I make a view highlighting fill in the blank, it doesn't matter. I have that freedom and that ability, and this here is just directing people to all of the manuals that they might need to interact with in an environment that I can very quickly and easily understand what I see. Obviously, the BIM process was important here. I needed everything to be modeled. And now notice I don't go crazy model. Boxes are cool. Remember that from a facility management perspective. I don't need a high level of geometry to portray what's going to be there. The 3D printer, the laser cutter, they're boxes. Now in here, you say, okay, Brent, you just contradicted everything you just said. Somebody had fun modeling those. Those could have been little boxes too. It doesn't matter. The point is we know what these are, we know how to access, and we know how to get to the information when we need to get to it. And that's what this has facilitated and allowed us to do. Bring digital, pull it into reality, and allow us to have this interaction of model, digital data, usage, facility management, everything coming together. Thank you. Questions, but there's got to be, oh, awesome. I think your hand went up first, and Laura on the room.
So the challenge of the digital twin is keeping the information up to date. So have you defined workflows, for instance, to make sure that when things change, you get the update and the update is actually translated into the model or the data that you are managing?
Yes, so for us, the facility manager, so I'm CTO, so I guess I'm ultimately responsible, but the facility manager would be the lead on that. So all of the changes, our designers will never know what's changed, but he will. So when something comes that changes, he'll orchestrate it, and he'll either connect with my digital team or with some of the previous designers from the actual project, and we update the model accordingly, and that trickles through right into the digital twin. The benefit of this is we're the client, we're the designer. So able to proof of concept how a digital twin works made it easy because we're connected, but the facility manager, the person running the assets, has to be driving that or nothing stays current.
In terms of the stationery that you mentioned, for instance,
Yep.
papers, pencils, whatever.
That's in the
You
workflow.
go, like once a week and make sure that your inventory actually.
Every time they scoop out because of Sortly has a mobile app, I walk into the room, just scan a QR code, grab 3 of them, boom, 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 done. So it's do that. When they don't do that, that's the problem.
That's my
Yeah,
problem.
so he'll do a true up to verify.
Yeah, I have a question, maybe not so much about the digital twin, but I was here when you guys were spending time in your office and before COVID.
Yep.
I'm assuming you guys had COVID shutdowns and work from home and hybrid and whatever everything else that you're going through. How is the office performing through that, and is it affecting any long-term change, or pretty much back to all the same amount of space and technology?
Yeah, so interesting, COVID was a challenge, but also offered a benefit because we were able to do the full renovation day, night. We didn't have to, we were planning to do nighttime rentals. So that allowed us to do everything. We grew. So when you were here in 2019, I think we were 150 and now we're 250. So through COVID, we grew. So the office is functioning now as designed. We're actually almost grown out of it as well. So that leads to hybrid. So we're able to have now more people than we have seats because I've implemented a desk sharing workflow. So if you're 2 days a week, you share a desk, you share a computer, or you have special KVM switches to have 2 computers, blah, blah, blah. But we have all that built in so we can technically have 219 times 2 in the office. I'll go back over here.
relative to your office, what's the biggest installation you've seen working to this functionality, like campus level? What have you seen? Because your office is a sort of a medium to small size building.
Yeah, so what's interesting on Tandem, when you get into the paid versions, you can get up to millions of assets and multiple buildings scattered across. So the reason why, as a CTO, having this as an example is because this is wholly scalable. So when I think back in my career, university campuses, even like world water, wastewater treatment plants, there's a whole host of things where this would be hugely beneficial. What I haven't tapped into yet is the systems functionality.
Yeah.
And thinking back through my process days, that would be fun, right? So what I'd like to do with a looking forward with our studio model is actually get the the mechanical model, to get that pristine, to actually portray the systems functionality on our supply return area.
So would you say that this Tandem would be a good top-end service, and then you can put a whole bunch of other systems in the back end to pipe that information in?
That would.
So it's almost like a graphical BI.
Yeah, it's my graphical interface, and it allows for the connectivity to others and the expert. So the IoT, I don't need my Power BI. All right, I just need them being broadcast or being captured in the SQL database and live showing in Tandem. If I had the Uber level access, I would have my 5-10 years of history of IoT in Tandem. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. I love it. We'll get everybody, I promise.
So I have two questions, guys, on this. One, well, does it attach to a ticketing system for a request, a service request from someone within your facility? And then the other piece is, this seems like kind of a proof of concept where you're saying you're the client, and either is this a service that you're selling to clients that you have, or is it just kind of trying to open your eyes to that?
So first question is the ticketing system. If there's anybody from Tandem in the room, that's been a request. So that's one we definitely want to hit them. And it could be as simple as I hit an asset, boom, pops open our email, fill it out, and it logs our ticket, and then maybe sees a bit of our ticket data back in Tandem. So that would be awesome. It's a possible service. Definitely I present it to open eyes to clients, and then to say, hey, we could be there for you. Let's design the solution. But that's what's critical. This is a workable solution for a single studio office. Awesome. You give me 5 studios, you give me 15 stores, give me a campus of university buildings. All possible, it just has to be built properly for what that end use is. So.
Yeah, I just wondered how user-friendly this is for the FM team itself. I know you said that you will open it up and go through it with them. Are they just accessing directly to SharePoint and your other service, or are they comfortable enough with the system that they're going in, they're able to look at different views and filters and manipulate themselves?
So my FM guy is in Tandem. So that's the intention. And if I ever hired again for a facility management, I would just want the criteria to be ability to interact with this. We'll teach you how to do it. But yeah, they definitely go into Sortly and SharePoint and do all of that, but they bring up Tandem, and so instead of, it started me bringing it up with him, now I go to his desk, he brings it up with me, and we do the analyses, so that's the intent.
And second part, you guys, or does Tandem work with Point Cloud as this, or does it have to be a Revit model? Like, can you link things to an actual Point Cloud?
So it can take Revit and IFC. I don't know. I don't know. I think the intention is yes. I don't know if that's been built in yet. So.
A question about assets where not easy to spot on your views, like box ceiling or in shops or when you are on different places. How do you manage to get them all in view?
How do I manage to what, sorry?
To get them all in those things too.
Yeah, so using filters, I'm just able to highlight items that contain certain pieces of metadata, and then just manipulating the model view like any other. It makes everything transparent, and I'm just highlighting those ones that contain like links to an asset manual or something.
You have the risk to miss one.
I have the risk to miss one, yes, and that's why it's not one and done, right? So that's why the facility manager is important, because if there's another critical manual that he's added, he
updates the view. And then that's why he's gotta be engaged in it equally with myself.
So what is the chief's involvement in the defining and reviewing those guidelines for the chief actions?
Who's involved?
The teams from the general to the CEO, basically the architects and designers, man. What is their involvement in defining and reviewing those guidelines?
So it started right from the beginning, and I think that's what's always important is that what is the end? Get the teams to be involved in that definition. But honestly, it's not from the designers. So when we were doing it internally, we were involved as the end user. So when I present it to a client, that's how I portray it: is who's going to be in your building? Is it you? Are you renting it out? Who's going to be that end user? What do you need? You need to know as a landlord. What will they need to know as a tenant? What do you need to know as a building owner? Those are all the questions. And then, what are the hot points? So what is it when managing this space that costs money, time, frustration, whatever it is? That's what you want to focus your digital twin on, because then that'll make it effective.
Do you have any automatic routine with the suppliers? So the pencils are run off. Did you buy more pencils or more notebooks or more assets? Do you have any routine?
Not particularly, we just connect like into the facility manager is the connection point.
Do you import all of that metadata from the Revit model, or do you have to recreate it?
So the tandem honors all of the design properties from Revit. So all of the parameters that are there can then become filters inside Tandem. So whatever I put in Revit is visible in Tandem, whatever I build in Tandem is only in Tandem, but it's all connected.
So I made a test of Tandem a while ago, and we had to stop using it because it's still cloud-based only, the Tandem number.
Yes,
We work with government contracts.
that could be a problem. That Autodesk can work on that. Autodesk should give us a solution, because it shouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility to encapsulate something that's 100% cloud and then put it on a secured local cloud. But you'd have to work with Autodesk to figure out the logistics of that.
Okay.
Sure.
Can you merge two data streams in one heat map? So if you want to see from the complaints in terms of the room, and I've got I want to check what the heating is in the room.
So yes, so the heat maps are connected. So depending on where I've located the IoT sensor, if I had two sensors in one room, for example, the data, the heat map takes both, and within the confines of the space it's in, calculates them out. So yeah, it's two streams. It's it's as many streams as you want. Because our open studio, right, we have sensors all around and throughout. So it's just calculating the interaction of everything together to portray that graphic.
Compare is in the past, the facility manager is a little bit different in the past, because the past is like to the administrators and very low labor work. But right now, the facility manager like to learning the BIM or digital twins. How is that good for your facility managers in the past? My question is like to your old facility manager is work for the new skill or?
That's an interesting question, and the reason I say that is because I've when I was in my water and wastewater days, the facilities of the plant managers were some of the most technologically advanced people I've ever met. Right? So it was really impressive. I actually learned a lot about facility management by doing on-site work with plant management. So when you go to traditional buildings, you could have issues where facility managers don't have that connection to technology. But my facility managers, and even in all the forums, everybody's talking about this change in how we're managing facilities, and it's just no different than the CAD to BIM or the pencil to CAD. So I just think it's an evolution of how we work. And
how to like to let the gap is smaller than before?
Focus it, I would just say. I didn't throw everything tandem at the facility manager. So like he goes in there and there's 2 or 3 functions that he does that makes tandem really dance for him. right? And I'm there to oversee. So he doesn't connect it to ACC, he doesn't update them. When the Revit gets updated, you have to press model. Like there's a whole host of things that my digital team does. But he's there, you know, are the IoT sensors reading? Are the links working? Has he updated SharePoint and Sortly? So he's managing all those pieces where he's like, this is awesome, right?
So the manager procedure is totally different in the past, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
It's evolved. Yeah. Sorry.
So just in terms of the metrics, before and after using Tandem, how much would you say we were able to save in terms of man hours, personal cost on the building? And also estimately on the energy use in the building before using Tandem afterwards, were you able to save some?
So I don't have energy savings data, but the labor to understand, that's where like I just, you know, I don't have numbers to give you, so I'm not even gonna pretend, but you know, when I pull it up and I can just get to something in seconds versus it might take a day. Where's the manual for this? Somebody's gotta go find it, figure out if it's the right one, maybe match it up against the physical asset, and then get it to me. That could be hours a day, right? Now it's a click. Or the biggest thing for me is the heat mapping. That's completely changed how we analyze the performance of the air and decisions. So we'll phone our mechanical contractor right away and say, hey, we have a room that's excessively hot. Yeah, we might walk to it just to open the door and validate that, yeah, it's an oven in there, but it's telling us it's hot. So we can quickly get to strategizing on how to better the air quality. And that's, just the speed is, yeah. I'm gonna go over here. Yep.
In tandem, are you able to adjust the value of some of the things that come from the Revit parameters, like desk assignments? With your Revit, are you able to go in and say, okay, this is desk is now assigned to Bob instead of Jill?
Yeah.
And does that go back to Revit at all?
So yes, what we try to do, so there is a push to and from Revit, tandem back to Revit, but it just depends on which one. So if you actually set up tandem properties that mirror your Revit property, you can push it back and forth. What we say is, or what I push is, just for simplicity, where the data is sourced, that's where we update it. So when we have design properties in tandem, I just tell that gets updated in Revit, keeps it simple, updated in Revit. We do our quality checks to make sure we didn't break anything. The second we publish, there's a new published ACC that gets pulled into tandem.
Can you put me in alerts on the sensors, so if air quality reaches a certain level, then you can get alerted to real temperature?
I think that's a feature request as well. So that's, yeah, so support and alerts are both hopefully coming soon. There's search. I didn't say, after I made these videos and everything, the search functionality came out. And that's really cool. When that turned on, I just in the search window, I type my name and it shows every single asset that has my name. Or I type temperature, or I type laser cutter, it'll take me straight to it. So it's reading all the design properties, all the tandem properties, and it's finding all possible options for my search criteria. So that's a really cool thing. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that you had, IoT data that was then, looked like it was connected to a room, so you could color code the room based on if there was a single sensor in there. I'm just wondering, and you said that was coming from a SQL database. How difficult is it to just connect any arbitrary piece of data that you have and give it into the model?
As a stream, or just
in general, somehow somebody went rogue and gave an Excel file a bunch of stuff, or is it?
Well, I'm gonna say easy, with a caveat that I'd have to validate it with my people. But once I have a data source, it's very easy to point tandem to a source and say this is something we want to connect to. And then all tandem asks is what's the relationship. So there's connection strings and connection criteria. We map it all together and push it into tandem, and it should be cool. So if for example, for our IoT, anytime we add an additional one, great, we'll have it. There's a SQL connection string, tandem, add stream, boom, boom, and then I just place it where it physically is, and it's done. So if somebody gave me like a rogue IoT sensor data that comes from an Excel, I'd have to just build that connection string to it, and it would, in theory, work-ish. I never do it though. Yeah. Sure.
Are there varying levels of user access? Like, because the way you talk about it, it sounds like the entire office has access to this to be able to figure out, you know, how the treadmill works, how your table desk works. Are you able to limit views that are just for the facilities team to access, so you don't have a bunch of people in there? And
So right now, security is based on just admin contributor view. I don't believe there's view-based security, but that would be actually a really cool one. So like if I had streams, for example, streams for HVAC and stuff like that, I might want to limit that to just certain contributors. So no, that's a good idea.
So if there is legally managed permissions and all that, you would have a list of who's accessing it to be able to then understand the value associated with it, like how frequently it's being used, the extent of it being used.
Yeah, I believe all that data is available, yes, to show how often it gets accessed. But our intention is to have the studio, like the studio model, access to all of the users of the studio. But you're right, like the rooftop units, that would be one that, if there was a view I'd want to restrict, it's probably that one, because nobody should really be jumping to it. Yes, sir.
Kind of more a technical perspective. If you have a certain approach to setting all this up, so you made sure, for example, all the IoT devices were secure, specific network setup or anything, so it would also be transferable to beyond your own office or provide as a service.
Yeah, so our IT has worked very closely with us. And that's why, so as CTO, I've got design technology and information technology, and I love working with IT. It's like, hey, I need a server. Like, for what? For testing, and then it becomes now a critical thing. And like, when did this become critical? So those are all good dialogues, but yeah, we scattered these sensors across, and I remember them coming to us saying, what's all this stuff connecting to our Wi-Fi? Wow, the sensors for this, and why don't we put it on its own Wi-Fi network and give it its own access points, and then we can secure it. And I listened, and I said, why don't we do that? It's a good idea, right? But remember how it starts, right? Somebody's computer, we dropped on a Linux server, dropped on the MQTT listeners, connected the first device to the Wi-Fi. Right, it worked. After a year, COVID came, 2 years, 3 years, now we added more, and suddenly the thing we tried 3 years ago had 35 sensors and became a lot more critical than it was before, right? But we fixed it. It's a good call. Yes, sir.
Do you keep track of any AV stuff, like units for Teams, Zoom channels? What I'm interested is like sometimes those teams call resources from IT. You know, I know you're able to track energy. Do you track network traffic or resources being pulled?
Oh, that's interesting.
And they do, you know, AV, when they're doing big 70 people team call.
Yeah.
All of a sudden somebody drops out or.
So those IoT sensors actually track by a Wi-Fi band traffic. I didn't have that on the list there because there was another one. I'm not sure exactly what I'm reading yet when I see it, so I'm trying to understand what it does. But even a data point of network bandwidth, that could be intriguing. I like that. So we do obviously physical assets of all the AV software, so we know where everything is, where we have our owls, where we have our connection points, etc. But yeah, tracking, hey, we just had an event. What hits did that have on the entire infrastructure versus normal? That would be very cool. Yes, sir.
Did any of the tandem alternatives come close, or was it just not even working?
Well, one of the challenges with some of the other alternatives, so yes, essentially yes. So a lot of them needed a price just to get in and test. And that was hard, right? Because like, okay, I need to spend $40K to see if this thing could possibly work for a year, right? So those aren't good. And then some of the other ones, it's interesting, and this is where I said, Revit was not BIM, BIM is not digital twin. So I go, we're a digital twin platform. Okay, cool, what do you do? Well, we've been putting a lot of focus on model coordination and managing clashes. Okay, that totally doesn't interest me. That's not digital twin, right? So some of those other platforms were very heavy on things like that, where it's like, are you trying to duplicate ACC? What's the point? Or are you duplicating Navisworks? But yeah, Ecodomus is one that I worked with a lot in the past. Really good, right? One I didn't have on the list, UBIM, another example, they, you know, a lot of those, I guess if it's an organization that's software as a service, and that all they say is, you give us a bunch of stuff, and we're gonna build a platform that helps to integrate with it and do whatever you ask us to do, that would be a good digital twin outfit, right? Don't know what the cost is, whatever, but that's what the concept should be. Throw all your data at me from a multitude of sources, including the little speck called BIM, and we'll do something with all that data. Cool? Yes, sir.
Is there any concern on, like, when, say, tandem in the future stops? Like, is...
Don't say that.
All these services at some point have an end of life.
No, it's Autodesk, they're just gonna change the name. Whoever's Autodesk in here, sorry.
Before tandem.
I know, and I know and it's interesting because building ops, on the tandem webinars, they do say that's where like the maintenance ticket, so they're trying to still get those lingering pieces that were there into this. But yeah, no, I hear you, so I don't want to think that way, but yeah, I would need I would have to shift, right? If tandem tomorrow will suddenly disappear, I have the concept, I have all the stuff, I just now need a new window. That was such a downer way to end